their first kills. The next one was not only cleaner, but the killer's signature changed. There was the knife in the skull of our victim, Wendy Farstone, but that wasn't all of the differences we found. Another crime scene photo faded in through the last. This one depicted a woman, looking almost peaceful as blood dried in crusted rivers down her face. Behind her, wings had been drawn, using the same blood that served as a mask. This was when the Pegasus was officially born, Beckham continued. They clearly wanted to differentiate themselves from the unicorn, and they've done that, not only with the wings, but with their MO, which also changed. The unicorn only went after queer men, but our current killer opened up that target list from the start. Austin Romero, one of the native Blue Creek detectives, spoke up. Sounds like we're dealing with someone who doesn't like sharing the spotlight. Exactly right, Beckham said. So keep that in mind when we're looking at suspect profiles. This person seems to be desperate not only to kill, but to be known for it. They're definitely trying to send a message. The screen faded to show the social media profile pages of a crooked smiling man, a cigarette hanging out of his mouth in almost every picture. Beckham looked around the table of gathered detectives. This is Colton Majors, our number one suspect at the moment. He's a relatively new resident to Blue Creek, moving into a home in the Blades a year and a half ago. The murders began a year ago, so the timeline is there. Colton also has a criminal record as long as a CVS receipt, with the most recent being a restraining order put in place by two of his previous girlfriends. His number was discovered in Wendy's phone, and he worked with Julius on a couple construction projects at the drag queen club, the Queen's Throne. But Colton also had an alibi for both murders, although it isn't a bulletproof one. He says he was with a friend out of town, but we haven't been able to speak to that friend, and cell records put him in the Blades. What's he got to say about that? I asked. Said he left his cell phone at home. He thought it was broken, so he picked up one of those burner phones from Best Buy. Another question popped into my head. Does he have any connections with the unicorn? I know he's serving a life sentence, but maybe they linked up sometime in the past. It's something I was looking into right before I got the news I had to head back to Miami. From what I found, no. There's nothing tying him together with Leo. They never went to the same school, worked the same job, lived in the same town. Nothing. Ryan Diaz, another of Blue Creek's home detectives, pointed at the photo grid on the projector. Look at that photo, the one in the third row all the way to the end. Where is that? What's he standing by? The photo magnified, taking up the entire screen. It depicted Colton smoking a cigarette and standing in front of a large statue at an outdoor museum. The statue was of a man riding a horse, the horse rearing up on its hind legs, large marble wings stretching out from its shoulders. A Pegasus. This photo sent up red flags for me too, Beckham answered. It was taken 3 years ago at a statue garden in California. I haven't been able to find any other references to Greek mythology, but this one is interesting. Do we have any other suspects? Mark Masters asked. He had come from the New York branch of Stonewall to help out with the case. Colton's our top one right now. We're looking at a few other newcomers to Blue Creek before we widen the net to people who have been here longer, I said. It was time for me to start leading on this. The briefing was mainly to catch everyone else up on the case, but I'd been poring over every detail Beckham handed to me since I arrived in Blue Creek about 2 weeks ago. Finding this monster had become my top priority, and I wasn't going to let anything interfere with that. Work meant everything to me, mainly because I had nothing else besides work to focus on, and I was determined to solve this case. What about... My question was cut off by a knock on the door. Darian peeked his head inside, waving for my attention. Sorry to interrupt. There's just someone up front. He's, well, I think you should talk to him, Jason. I stood up from my seat and squeezed around the table. Our offices were located above a pet store, and although the windows offered some great views, the space itself was limited. I made it around the table and reached Darian, who opened the door and let me out into the hall. What's going on? I asked him as we walked the short way up to the front desk. He says he's here to work on the Pegasus case. I know you're taking it over today, and no one ever mentioned a new addition to the team.